Miss Andy Hempridge. I am a second-year speech-language pathology master's student, and I was in the first and second semesters of Journal Club, and this last semester, because of my internship, I haven't been able to participate. Oh, and I'm leading this whole thing with Jamie, by the way. I forgot to add that. My co-facilitator is Jamie. I'm going to pass the ball to Jamie now.
Okay, hi, my name is Jamie. I'm also a second-year master's student, and I have been in Journal Club since spring of this past year, so when it first started. Same as Sandy, this year, or this semester, I'm interning at Santa Clara Unified, so it's hard for me to attend the meetings, but I'm there in spirit. So I'll pass it over to Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Ballou. I'm one of the co-founders of Journal Club, and Paul and I work together to facilitate conversations. My role in Journal Club is, I would say, largely communicating to students. I would say, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong here, I probably handle most of the communications. So that's probably a lot of my role there. Oh, did I miss something? Oh, of course, communicative disorders. So I'm connected to the department. I'm also a second-year graduate student.
And I'm Paul Casella. I'm a faculty member in speech-language pathology. Along with Michelle, I help coordinate the Journal Club process. My role is working with Michelle on all the different steps and processes that we use to facilitate student participation in Journal Club. Helping to figure out what may be some potential contemporary articles, thinking about the kind of questions that could guide some of the discussions, and also reflecting on what seems to be working, what doesn't seem to be working based on student opinions, to then sort of modify and adjust what we're doing when we get together.
Hi, I'm Megan Cuellar. I am also a faculty member in speech-language pathology, a new faculty member at San Jose State University, and I'm a participant of Journal Club and have benefited from the excellent work of my colleagues here.
And I don't know if James wanted to say hi.
Oh, hi, my name is James. I'm also a second-year master's student in the CD&S department. I was in Journal Club since its birth as well, but have been in and out due to conflicts with internship and schedules.
I can go next. I'm Paulina Medina. I'm a senior in the CD&S major, and I've been in Journal Club for the first 2 semesters as well. And hopefully after the NISLA meetings have like their new schedule, well, not new schedule, but once the meetings are not the same time, I can finally be in Journal Club again.
And hi, my name is Rabia Barca. I'm a 4th-year undergraduate student within the CD&S department, and I have been a part of Journal Club since its birth as well, but because of NISLA as well, I haven't been able to be at the past meetings, but hopefully now we can now start going back to regular scheduling of going to the meetings.
My definition states that it's a community event that centers discussion and fellowship around an important article or collection of articles that focus on meaningful and professionally related topics of interest. 3
ideas stuck out to me as part of that definition. And ironically, they are C, C, and C. And I did not plan for that. And so I like Jamie's comment about cultural. Like there's a piece to this that's really around culturally relevant. And that sticks out to me, particularly when I think of some of the themes that the groups have decided on. I would also say contemporary. We're only reading really new stuff. We're not looking sort of at older, everything is published in the last 2 years, and some of it is brand newly published. And then several people, and I'm going to add the third C, is context. And so when Michelle says something about that complement the coursework or go deeper, or Megan's around meaningful and professionally related topics of interest, it's very context driven. What are people interested in talking about right now? And so some of the themes, so for, again, it's kind of, it's a little too speechy to say CCC, but I think context, contemporary, and culturally sustaining or culturally relevant, to me, that has to be part of the definition.
Bobby, do you want to actually read out what you put in the chat?
Sure. So I would describe Journal Club as an inclusive club that just discusses the field of speech language pathology in a broader aspect that usually isn't discussed within our courses.
Mm-hmm. Great. I really like that you included the inclusive club. I don't think we had that last week necessarily. Yeah. All right, good. What about you, Paulina?
I said, to me, Journal Club is a different way to learn about CDS topics, but in a more fun, collaborative way. It's a safe place to critically think about different situations one can be in while in the field.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. And I like that you also added the fun part aspect of Journal Club into the definition. So that's really nice. Okay, great. James, do you feel okay to, okay, great.
Yeah, I can share.
What you said in the chat.
Yeah, for me, Journal Club is a safe place where we can share similar conflicting ideas. And it's really an extension of our education, and it really explores various avenues that we haven't touched upon in our coursework, and it's just a really fun place to be.
How about
Maybe you can mention that, just what Jamie was saying, like it provides a safe space and a fun learning environment to discuss more, contemporary topics. So I know you guys mentioned that in the beginning, but that's just what was on my mind since I was kind of just driving.
Originally, I wasn't envisioning alumni joining. We knew that faculty and students would be involved side by side. I didn't expect alumni to join, but we got asked by graduating folks if they could stay involved, which was really cool. And then I also didn't expect faculty to have as strong of a faculty comes. It's great. I was kind of thinking, I'm like, okay, yeah, we can keep it open to faculty. I don't know, why would they want to come? And of course they do, because they're great educators.
Healthcare issues, in the LGBTQ plus community, particularly among the aging process, and even the current one about educational equity, are really being driven by some contemporary issues that students care a lot about and are seeing in the media and in the news, and our job has become just trying to see what's out there, to satisfy that cultural piece. I don't know that we originally thought of it.
Article that still sticks with me was the Much Ado About Fried Chicken article. So it was in the ethics section, and that article was describing an ethical dilemma in which a person was at the end of their life and making choices about eating foods that could potentially shorten their life. So I think that article still sticks with me. Someone actually told me they brought that article, they're in a hospital placement now, and they brought that article with them to talk about with the folks, kind of in their own little mini journal club situation about that one article. So I think it stuck with a lot of us who were there for that meeting. and very unexpected. I hadn't thought about ethical issues before. That was prior to our dysphagia course, where we did discuss it a bit, but even this conversation, that conversation felt so much more, it was really impactful to me. So I'd say that was definitely one that sticks out for me.
Stuck out to me. I don't remember exactly which article it was, but it was during the second semester or second iteration of Journal Club. And just, we were talking about the LGBTQ plus community. And one of the topics or areas that came up was creating a space of safety. And it was just not something I really thought about before. And what does it mean to create a space of safety? You know, having objects that represent many different cultures in all its manifestations of what culture means, or cultural diversity. So that's definitely something that stuck with me, and I can imagine I will take that with me, you know, as I continue on in this profession.
Really enjoyed and what has stuck with me is the article about the justice system and juveniles who end up in the criminal justice system, and the common factor of auditory processing and language related impairments, and how our services are so critical to underserved communities, and especially children in underserved communities, and how impactful it could be from a social justice reform perspective. There's so many times where we talk about these issues, and I feel personally like I'm helpless and in many ways to contribute in a meaningful fashion. But I think this is an opportunity for us as professionals and to reach out and think about in a different way how we can have a social impact through the services that we can provide.
Typically, well, from the last few times I was able to be there, we would split into two groups. They were two, well, they weren't small breakout rooms, they were kind of like large. And then we each kind of go through some questions that are usually pre-prepared. Or if not, we just kind of flow and bring up what we thought was interesting in the article. And then people will usually jump in and bounce off of each other. And then at the end, we will usually kind of reconvene and go over what main ideas we came up with. And then, yeah, I think that's usually how our meetings go.
Conversations.
Yeah, I like what Robbie said. I like how he pointed out that when we're in person, we're all sitting in a circle, because I think that really does change the group dynamic. Usually when we're learning, we're like facing the board or we're facing the professor. But I think when you're all looking at each other, it definitely makes it feel more safe, less intimidating. Yeah.
Me as a professional, my job is to look at literature, analyze literature, determine how it applies to a current research project, or how can I teach an idea related to this literature. It's so there's so much productivity and function wrapped in it, whereas this is like explore, expand, connect, and thrive within your discussion about a topic, and that just has been really meaningful to me.
And if it's interesting then coming together with other students, and we've had in breakout group discussions before, I've read something and for the first time, I know Paul encourages this in his classes, like, what didn't you like about it? And for the first time, I'm able to sit with other people and say, like, okay, like I kind of don't like the language they use. Like, why are we saying this? Like, why are we othering like this group in this way? Or like, why do we keep using this phrase? Or like, I didn't really like, did you like how they did that? And so I feel like when I'm reading it on my own, I'm a little more tense, like, you know, if it was for a course, and now I'm kind of more relaxed even in just reading it.
I was thinking about how I read research when I'm on my own. Usually, yeah, it is for like a class or an assignment. But if I'm reading something and I don't understand what's happening, or I don't like it,
for
and
me,
I'm
it's
just
like
like,
a lot.
okay, I'll
I'm
just like, okay, I'm just gonna find a different one.
Yeah.
But with Journal Club, if I don't understand something or if I have questions, like it's totally okay. Because then I can come to the group and then ask those questions and discuss it. And then usually I'll get some clarity about it.
Doing it collaboratively together. So if there's like a concept I don't understand, because that happens often when I'm reading, you know, academic articles, someone else can explain it to me. And like you mentioned earlier, what's really great about Journal Club is that you have the perspective of undergrads, graduate students, and you know, the professors, the faculty. So there have been many times where I remember in Journal Club, we don't know what something means, or we don't know how something works. So we just ask Paul or Lyle or whoever's there, like, oh, how does this work? And it just makes it so much easier to understand as you're going along. Whereas when I'm like alone and I'm just kind of reading an article, sometimes I'm like, oh, like it's just overwhelming. But yeah, no, this is a much more enjoyable experience. It makes learning fun, literally.
I feel like thinking about both this question and the one before and kind of hearing everyone's insights, it made me think about like why I wanted to start this club. And it made me think like that one day when I graduate, in theory, to help all my clients, I'm going to actually need to know how to like read these articles. And I like don't like reading them right now. And it's really stressful. And then I have noticed, hearing kind of what James had said, it was so funny, James, when you were like, how would Paul and Michelle think about this? I start to think about like everyone who I'm in a room with during Journal Club and realize like, oh, there's lots of different ways to think about this. And like, then like you said, Robbie, like if I was talking to someone else about this, like this is the part I'd be like, what is going on here? Like, it made me think that now, you know, one of the like reasons to start this club was to really like make sure that once we graduate, I can actually talk about this or understand this. And now it's like kind of at this point that because we are consuming it in this like the research in a group way, you have all these different like, I might not have the exact perspective in my head, but I can know that someone else will have a different opinion on this article, that this article is not like something that was created and is infallible and should be framed in gold. Like it's very valuable and like probably confusing to most people. So it's interesting thinking about that evolution.
I talk about every single journal that we read, just because I find them all interesting. So I'm always talking to my friends that even aren't a part of CD&S. But the one that I usually talk about is, I believe it was the first journal, and it was on ethics, on whether or not you would help your patient, and if you would hand them that fried chicken and you give it to them even though they have issues with swallowing and they find it very painful. I always talk about that, and I always ask my friends, and I explain the scenarios of whether or not they would do it, just to see what other people are thinking, just because it's a fun conversation, but at the same time, it really makes you think about whether or not that's something that you would like integrate with either being like an SLP or whatever field that you're a part of whether or not you'd want to help somebody like kind of reach their like dream sort of in a sense, or just kind of abiding by the rules. And I always talk about that with my family, because as well, my family, because my mom always tells us to like, just give it to me. Like if I'm on my deathbed, just give it to me. Like I'm dying here, not you. Like I want it. Like you better tell the nurse that I want it. And so I just always
like Journal Club, the meetings that we had have really shaped the way I view ethics. Like I had never thought about them as deeply as I do now. Now I feel like every time I observe like a session or anything really, like I'm thinking about the ethics behind it. Or anytime like I read like any research article, like I think about the ethics behind it. Like it has really ingrained it into my fabric of thought. And not even like in a, oh, like I learned it in a hard class type of way. Like no, like we did that through learning about really interesting topics such as the chicken.
And was thinking like, wow, like it just opened up my eyes that some of the things that they had mentioned I hadn't even thought about. What like I believe it was that one as well, was talking about chosen families and how you have to be sort of careful on how you just, either way you have to be careful, but just more so just how you discuss families, because some come from families where they might not be accepted, or they have to choose their own families. And I liked how they had described and kind of defined chosen families, just because it was very important to note that for some people that are not a part of the community, to understand that those terms and the meaning behind them.
Was the first one of this semester. I forgot the title, but it was relevant to auditory processing and language disorders in the juvenile system. And it really just helped me, well, it made me rethink how I view a lot of people, just in people in general, like what are they going through? What are the underlying causes of their maybe like misdemeanors or maybe their behaviors? Because it kind of like bounces off the idea that there's or like the theory and the studies that have shown that there's a lot of students, not students, a lot of inmates with ADHD or other attention or disinhibition disorders that are causing them to act out like this, and the society is not ready for, society's not made for them, or it's not accommodating them. So just so back to the article, it was really insightful to hear that that there's a bunch of students there that like are having trouble just like understanding directions and expressing themselves, and that kind of leads to this kind of like neurological change in their brains that like cause them to just like, you know, act like quote unquote act out or quote unquote act bad when there's actually some underlying cause behind that. So that one is really relevant for me right now because I work in a high school setting and there's a lot of kids in my general ed load that have these language disorders that may not seem different from their gen ed peers, but they're really struggling in class to just follow directions, to express themselves and self-regulate. So that was a really a big article for me. I think that sometimes we can't really dig deep into specific nitty-gritty topics like that. So I think no, we don't really have the time to talk about that stuff in the classroom. So having the space outside is really beneficial for us that way.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same for undergrads. We don't really delve that deep in. Yeah, so the articles that we read are usually more thought-provoking, I would say, than what we do in our classes.
And I would also agree with Paulina. I remember just kind of dipping our toes a little bit into what goes on within like voice sessions for the transgender community. And I myself, because I was interested in that population, and so I had done more research within it just because I wanted to know more about what was in it and what like speech pathologists do. And so having that article be a part of Journal Club was like eye-opening and was like just awesome because I was like, wow, this is something that I was interested in. And it's so crazy that we're reading an article on that.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity to discuss it with undergraduates, your peers, and faculty is really unique too, that you don't really get to do that in class. Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to share about that question? Okay.
So I think just to top off on what you said, Jamie, I think it's so neat that we can experience like 3 different kind of like, not levels, but 3 different perspectives of like what each person thinks is important, each group thinks is important. The undergraduate, what do they think that's important? The graduate students, what they think that's important. And then the faculty who've been in the field for years, what are they deeming as important? So it's really nice to get that mix and like kind of like combine thought processes. So
was wanting to just interact and meet new people within the CD&S department just because we only see a certain portion over and over again from the same cohort. So I was hoping to meet new people, and of course I did. And also because I also had Paul the previous semester, and I am currently working under him as a research assistant. And so anything that Paul was doing, I was like, okay, that's a good idea. Let's go ahead and join the club because Paul is just amazing.
I agree. Paul is just so great, and I love his teaching styles. And also, just like you, Robbie, I wanted to meet new people. I heard that both the cohorts were mixing, and then I didn't even know that the undergraduates were in, which was like an added bonus. And I'm so happy like I got to meet you guys. And additionally, I wanted to get closer to, you know, the people in my cohort as well. Typically, like, you know, class is like almost three and a half hours, and like we're exhausted by the end of it, and like we all just like, you know, go on our like merry ways to like go rest up. But here, like we actually have a chance to discuss about topics that are interesting to us and really like pick each other's brains. So that's what really made me want to join.
Yeah, and I wanted to add on to what James had said. When I was joining, I had thought it was for undergraduates until I had gone and there was only a couple undergraduates. And I was very scared. I remember telling Paulina, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, we're like the only ones. But after like that first meeting, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to keep coming back. Like it was just so much fun. The graduate students had made us feel like so welcomed, and I just loved it so much.
Yeah, a lot of that I was really intimidated that first meeting, probably the first couple meetings. I was like, what did I get myself into? But no, yeah, like Robbie said, everyone was so friendly and welcoming, and it's such a positive environment that like I love being in. So yeah, probably one of the better choices I made last semester, or the first semester.
Yes, mine is also an easy 100% yes. I would recommend it to everybody. And like Paulina said, not only to people within CD&S, but everybody within the College of Education or have similar majors, or just anybody who is basically down to have a conversation with us. I think that hearing anybody's perspective, especially even if they're in a different major, it'd be really cool to hear other people who aren't a part of this major but have read the article, and just to see what like how they view things and how they perceive and what topics that they would like to discuss.
And obviously a most definite yes for me as well. And since they're talking about, you know, like having other people from different departments like join in as well, I'm having more big ideas of like, you know, once we like get this started, like we have a College of Education Journal Club broken down to subdivisions that's open to the whole school, hopefully, like, you know, and then like it continues going on that way. Like, you know, undergraduates who are like undeclared or who are interested in the field can jump in and see like a whole different perspective of like what we're talking about and like what are relevant contemporary issues for us. So yeah, most definitely yes. Yeah.
I never thought I would be in a club that would make me excited to read articles, but here I am. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes, and I also think that if there's that slight chance I end up going to another graduate school or wherever I end up going to, I will still continue to come and be loyal as a journal club member at SJSU.
And I would love to learn how to start my own journal club in any setting. So if you guys, if Michelle or Paul have any like, you know, like a workshop day where you just like teach us how to like teach us like what are your tips and tricks on like selecting journal articles and how to, you know, get things rolling, that'd be great, because never thought I would also be in journal club as well. So.
Like I think that's such a good idea, and that way it can like really carry over. Because I was thinking too, like once we get into the workforce, when James and I graduate this year, and Sandy and Jamie, like how do you keep that going? So it's really fun. And I also just want to say, like as a last comment, Sandy and Jamie, thank you so much. I feel like you both just organized this conversation like so well, and I'm super happy that I know you both and get to just like be on the receiving end of all of your wonderful organization and like leadership. Thank you. Thanks for making this an awesome like discussion and panel.